David had promised himself that after the divorce, he would never see Emily or her family again. The pain had been too deep, not from anger, but from disappointment. 5 years of marriage had ended in silence, not shouting. They had simply grown apart, two people drifting on different tides. When it was over, Emily's family, the Turners, had sided with her completely. They treated David like an outsider, even though he'd once been their son-in-law, the one who fixed their fence, shoveled their driveway, and stayed up late talking with her father about baseball. So when it all ended, he walked away quietly. No fights, no demands, no bitterness. Just distance. Then, one cold Saturday morning 2 years later, there was a knock at his apartment door. David opened it, expecting a delivery. Instead, standing there with a pale face and trembling hands, was Grace, Emily's younger sister. For a moment, he couldn't speak. "Grace," he said finally, "what are you doing here?" She looked like she hadn't slept in days. "David, I know this is unexpected, but I didn't know who else to come to." He gestured for her to come inside. She hesitated, then stepped in, glancing around the small apartment. "It's been a long time," she said softly. "Yeah," David replied. "Almost 2 years. How's your family?" That's when her eyes filled with tears. "That's why I'm here," she whispered. "It's about Emily." His heart clenched. "What happened?" Grace took a deep breath. "She was in an accident 3 days ago. She's in the hospital, stable now, but she asked for you." David froze. The words didn't make sense. "She asked for me? Why would she?" Grace nodded. "She's been asking for you since she woke up. No one understood why. Not Mom, not Dad. She said she needed to tell you something important, something she should have said before the divorce." David didn't move for a long time. The memories he'd buried, the laughter, the long walks, the arguments that turned to tears, all came flooding back. Finally, he said quietly, "Give me the hospital address." When he arrived, the Turners were in the waiting room. The air grew tense the moment they saw him. Mrs. Turner frowned. "You shouldn't be here, David." He ignored the sting in her voice. "I'm not here to argue." Grace said Emily wanted to see me. Mr. Turner sighed, defeated. "She did. She's awake now. Room 312. David walked down the hall, every step heavy with memories. When he entered the room, Emily was lying in bed, pale but awake. She looked at him and smiled weakly. "You came." He stood by her bedside. "Grace said you wanted to talk." Emily nodded slowly. "I did. I don't even know where to start." "Start anywhere," he said softly. She took a breath, her voice trembling. "When we divorced, I told everyone it was because we fell out of love. But that wasn't true. I pushed you away because I was sick. I didn't want you to waste your life taking care of me." David's chest tightened. "Sick? You never said anything." "I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder," she continued. "It wasn't life-threatening then, but it was unpredictable. I thought leaving you was the kindest thing I could do. I didn't want to become your burden." David sat in silence, the truth sinking in like cold rain. "Then why tell me now?" he asked quietly. She smiled faintly. "Because I realized it wasn't kindness. It was fear. You deserved the truth. You always did." He reached out, gently taking her hand. "You didn't have to protect me, Emily. You just had to let me choose." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I know. I was wrong." For a long time, they sat there, two people who had once been everything to each other, now joined again by honesty instead of love. When he finally left the hospital that evening, Grace met him in the hallway. "She looks better," she said quietly. David nodded. "She'll recover. And maybe this time, so will we." As he stepped outside into the cool evening air, David realized something he hadn't before. Closure doesn't always come in anger or revenge. Sometimes it arrives softly, through forgiveness and the truth that was long overdue. And that night, he didn't feel bitter. Just at peace, knowing that even broken stories can still end with understanding.